Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most cinematic and honestly fascinating stories in modern aviation. We're looking at the incredible rise, the tragic fall, and the highly surprising resurrection of the Airbus A380. We're going to explore a machine that didn't just fly, it pushed the absolute limits of human engineering. Listen, to really wrap your head around the story, you first have to grasp the sheer, frankly absurd scale of this aircraft. Fully loaded, it weighed a staggering 560 tons. 560 tons. To put that into perspective for you, that's roughly equivalent to the weight of 100 African elephants. Just picture that lifting off a runway. Which brings us to the central mystery of our explainer today. If this was the absolute peak of aviation, widely considered the greatest passenger plane ever built, why did companies suddenly refuse to build it anymore? What actually happened? Part 1. The ultimate engineering marvel. Let's look at how they actually pulled this off. We're talking about a behemoth, boasting a 73-meter length, an 80-meter wingspan, and 2 massive full-length decks. Because of this, the A380 could carry over 800 passengers across oceans. Over 800! That is a capacity record that no other passenger plane has ever even touched. And building a mega machine like this? Well, it beautifully illustrates the compounding complexity of the whole project. It wasn't just built by one factory. It took 4 million precise individual parts and enough wiring to stretch 530 kilometers. All of this was meticulously sourced from over 1,500 different companies. It was like a giant global puzzle. Part 2. A global logistical nightmare, because bringing those millions of parts together was a massive headache. Since the parts were way too large for standard cargo planes or regular trucks, Airbus basically had to invent a crazy transportation network. First, parts manufactured across 30 different countries were shipped via ocean vessels to France. Then, they were transported on massive truck convoys in the dead of night. Airbus literally had to widen roads, reinforce bridges, and redesign city intersections just to move the wings and fuselage. Now, what's really wild here is how engineers tamed this beast. You'd expect 4 ultra-powerful engines to be deafening, right? But it's actually incredibly quiet. And those massive carbon fiber wings, they were engineered to intentionally flex and bend up to 4 meters upward during flight. It sounds crazy, but that flexibility perfectly absorbs wind pressure, giving passengers maximum stability and a buttery smooth ride. Part 3, forcing airports to change. The plane was ready, but the ground wasn't. When it finally launched, global airports simply weren't ready for wings this wide or engine thrusts so powerful it could literally blow away small vehicles. Because of this, major hubs like Dubai, London, and LA had to spend billions of dollars. They structurally reinforced runways for the extreme weight and completely redesigned terminals with specialized, wider gates just to handle it. Part 4. The tragic market downfall. Right when it seemed invincible, everything shifted. This is where we see a fatal irony. Airbus bet the farm on massive size. 500 to 800 passengers, relying heavily on major hub airports. But their rival, Boeing, they took the complete opposite approach with the 787 Dreamliner. They went for a smaller size, around 250 to 300 passengers, making it hyper fuel efficient and focusing on point-to-point direct flights. And while Boeing hit the nail on the head, airlines quickly realized that flying smaller planes directly between more cities was vastly more profitable than trying to fill 600 seats every single day. The A380's greatest strength, its unmatched size, became its absolute worst weakness. Airlines just couldn't fill the seats, which eventually led Airbus to permanently halt production in 2019. Part 5. The pandemic plot twist. Just when we thought it was over, a miracle. Let's track this unbelievable timeline for a second. 2019, production is officially canceled. 2020, COVID-19 hits, the planes are grounded entirely and sent out to rot in desert storage. But then, post-pandemic, global travel surged so unexpectedly fast that airlines were desperate, so they miraculously brought the A380 out of retirement to meet this massive demand. Airlines like Lufthansa actually reversed their permanent retirement decisions. They spent months pulling these giants out of the desert to rebuild their engines, and they joined carriers like Emirates, who, to be fair, always believed in the giant plane and continues to successfully fly the largest A380 fleet in the world today. But that really leaves us with a lingering question, doesn't it? If the A380 made such a triumphant return and it's currently saving the airlines, why won't anyone build a new one? Well, the reality is airlines are only flying them right now because they already own them. Nobody actually wants to buy new ones. The future of aviation firmly belongs to smaller, faster, and highly efficient aircraft. So the current A380s up there in the sky, they're the very last of their kind, and they will eventually retire without a successor. And that perfectly sums up our explainer today. As the saying goes, the A380 didn't fail because it was a bad airplane, it failed because the world changed. It was a flawless engineering triumph that just outlived the specific era it was built for. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. As our world keeps shifting and evolving, what other impossible engineering marvels are we destined to lose next?